we just got kicked off the flight because our 2-year-old would not put on a mask, and we tried. I mean, I'm gonna put a video on. And they're sending all of our bags and Adeline's car seat to New York. And we're banned off of United forever because a 2-year-old would not put on a mask.
Musa udah kan tadi, okay? Okay, Musa tadi nih. Sekarang Musa tadi nih. Okay? Okay, aku ikut mana sih kan? Kau tadi nih?
Babe, do you want to try putting it on her?
Yeah. What again?
Adeline, back up on you.
Musa tadi nih.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're almost ready to go, so please put away your carry-on items, including your large electronic devices like laptops. Feel free to keep using it.
I'm gonna have to ask you to grab the belongings and that's good. We gotta be getting information. Why? We're over here holding this mask on her face. I'm sorry, sir. I gave you another opportunity. I took that opportunity and I ran with it. You see this? I'm literally covering her face. I've gotta ask you to get out. Do you guys do this all the time or what? Like, what? There's non-compliance yet. This is compliance. I'm literally holding it over my daughter's face. This is compliance right here.
We can't force her. She's literally holding it and she's crying.
You're gonna do this to us? Like right now? Yeah? Wow.
Alright, let's go.
Your jacket's up there.
Okay. Go.
From Dallas, Texas, this is Anarchast.
Greetings and welcome back to Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. I will be your host, Patrick Smith. Today, I bring you special guest, Allan Stevo, who is an author who's been authoring pro-liberty content for 15 years. He has contributed to LouRockwell.com, Mises.org. I've even seen him speak at DEF CON, which is probably the world's most SJW hacker convention. Welcome to the show, Allan.
Patrick, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on.
I am really, really looking forward to this talk because the subject is dominating literally everyone's life for like the past year. And this is a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, I think. I have not had the pleasure of reading your book yet, but I am so excited to sort of dive into the topic. The reason why we're having you on is that you have recently published a book titled, oh man, I lost the title. It was...
One lesson.
Give it one more time. Give it to me again.
Face masks in one lesson.
Face masks in one lesson. And what is the sort of summary? What's the general point of the book?
There's a book by Henry Hazlitt, Economics in One Lesson, that a lot of your viewers are likely to know. And Hazlitt, it's kind of built on that same kind of concept. Hazlitt spends a few pages saying what he makes of economics, and then spends a bunch of pages kind of giving specific examples. Face masks in one lesson says in 10 or 15 pages, it says, this is why you would not want to wear a mask. And this is the general principle on how you can never wear a mask again, how you can go the rest of your life saying no to mask mandates with very little difficulty. And then for slow learners like me, it goes through the other 250 pages or so, saying, okay, here's how to apply the lesson in the grocery store, how to apply the lesson at work, at school. If you get called for jury duty, how to go and not wear a mask. If whatever the case may be, on an airplane, from the clip we just saw, a tragic clip. That's the smartest 2-year-old in America right there. I watched that clip. I said, that is the smartest 2-year-old in America. I have much to say about that clip if we get back to that topic. But that's Face Masks in One Lesson. It became a bestseller its first week out. And it's been very nicely received in the media so far. and some nice critical review, and lots of readers have been excited about it. It was built from some Luron conversations, basically.
We will definitely get back to that video because I think that's the perfect launching point for this discussion. But as is tradition on this channel, I have to ask you, sir, how did you become an anarchist?
Fantastic. I don't usually publicly say, "Hey, I'm an anarchist," because that term is just scary to a lot of people. But grew up on the South Side of Chicago, and a lot of Chicagoans have politics as a hobby. I don't know how that happened or why, but that's a common hobby in Chicago. And I was 7 years old the first time I was taken to go knock on doors. And since then, I've been involved in the political process in all kinds of ways, including in, it would have been 2006 or 2007, someone said, "Hey, have you read this Gold website?" And I sat down for a little bit, and the lead article was from some goofy name, Honorable Ron Paul. And I said, "Who is Honorable Ron Paul?" And before I knew it, a friend put me in touch with another friend, and we had both been living in Europe at the time, and the most fascinating organization in favor of Ron Paul emerged in 2007 that I could just go at so much length about. It was the most fascinating thing I saw. I ended up heading back to New Hampshire to work on Operation Live Free or Die, to work on the campaign. I worked on I took Ron Paul's platform and ran on it in the 10th Congressional District of Illinois for U.S. House of Representatives later in 2008. 2012, Ron Paul again. By that point, I wasn't just figuring out the ideas. I was pretty deep in there. And a friend wouldn't shut up about Bitcoin. We opened up a Bitcoin exchange in New York City for ideological reasons.
Which some of you may have heard of. Can you give us the name of this Bitcoin exchange?
It's called the New York Bitcoin Center, right next to the New York Stock Exchange. It was a fantastic. It appears in the movie Banking on Bitcoin on Netflix. And some people, there's a piece of legislation came to being in 2015. I wonder if we may have had something to do with that. It made some of that Bitcoin activity in New York illegal because we were very unapologetic about how beautiful Bitcoin was. And some of my lunch breaks would be spent outside of the New York Stock Exchange selling Bitcoin. And we'd have a group of 30 people. We'd be yelling prices. Traders would come out on their lunch break. And we were in the epicenter of the financial world. There were a bunch of dirties looking out their windows saying, we can't be having this in New York. And yada, yada, yada. I got some, I'm not the biggest fan of government in our lives.
So what would you call yourself?
I don't really, when I start to define myself, I realize that a lot of people's brains shut off. But I think anarcho-capitalist is a good description of me.
I was very impressed with you when I looked you up before our interview. One of the first things I saw was a short talk you gave at DEF CON a while back, and you briefly a couple times mentioned Austrian economics to the crowd, and you got some good reception from a couple of the people in the audience, which I was cheering on. I thought that was great. What's your experience or involvement with sort of the, I hate the word InfoSec community, much like you talked about in your talk, but as far as like the hacker community, what's your involvement there?
I gave a talk at DEF CON called, it was called something like InfoSec versus Hacker, the war for the soul of a technology. That was the nature of it. And there's the concept of InfoSec is maybe more protective of corporate property or something like that, which is okay. And there's this hacker notion of how do I create? How do I come up with new ideas? How do I do something innovative? How do I just, whatever weird, neat idea pops into my head, how do I make that a reality? And this is very much a hacker kind of mentality. This is a freaker mentality. The guys who would play their Captain Crunch whistles to hack the AT&T phone lines and call Japan. This is an Austrian economics mentality. It is the person with passion, geeky about the process, who might not have gotten straight A's in school, who knows? But they know so much more than even the professor teaching it. This is at the heart of what Bitcoin is and what so much innovation is. And this is very exciting to me. My experience with hackers is I am a low-tech, fantastic hacker that has always figured out how to make cool things happen. And I know some cool programming languages. I don't know them well. No hacker would ever call me a hacker, but the hacking mentality is very much in my head. If I want to do if I want to move from A to B, how do I get that done as efficiently as possible? It's just a very creative hacker way of doing things. How do you never wear a face mask again? So many Lou Rockwell readers came up to me over and over again. This is the biggest problem during lockdown. What do I do about this face mask? I'm hiding at home. What am I supposed to do? And the hacker came out. I can figure that out. Let's work on it. Hundreds of emails and correspondences later, we end up with kind of this finished product and face masks in one lesson.
Well, that's awesome. So let's dive into that. And let's begin, like I said, with that video of the family getting kicked off the Delta Airlines. I believe it was Delta.
United. Delta went out that way on.
So I guess the way I would like to intro this is with my personal experience, and I want to make sure that we take a balanced approach. And by balanced, I don't mean disingenuous like most news media would do. I want to say, so I've had a daughter with a medical condition that makes her immunocompromised for several years. We're at the end of it now. Things are looking good, but for years, several times, once a month, 3 times a month, we would go to the hospital and we would all wear masks for certain procedures, for certain precautions. There are valid reasons to wear masks. Masks are effective in some ways for certain things in certain scenarios, and I don't want to get into making medical recommendations because I'm not a doctor. Don't listen to me. I'm not an authority. I'm not studied. I'm not wise on the topic. But I think it's pretty clear to understand that the extreme, maybe you can disagree, and if you do, let's definitely have that talk, that there are times for masks, and they do have uses. And in spite of that, you still own your body. You still have the final say over medical decisions for yourself and what should happen to you. And you should still have the final say over whether or not you wear one in whatever situation you find yourself in life. So I guess I just wanted to intro it that way because I want to point out that I've been on the other side where we had a good reason, according to our doctors, in our situation for doing it in the hospital in specific situations. But now we find ourselves in this situation where I gotta say, and again, just interrupt me if you disagree, if you think I'm wrong. Feels like 99.7% of what we see out there day to day is virtue signaling. And what I mean by that is it's people wanting to signal to the people around them that they are not selfish and that they are good people that care about others and want to help the community and want to help those around them be safer. Whether or not what they're doing actually accomplishes those goals, that's the message they want to send. And if you're not one of the people, they also want to project onto you the inverse of those qualities. You're selfish. You don't care about others. You're only worried about yourself. You're not willing to mildly inconvenience yourself for the safety of others, those kinds of things. Okay, so that's kind of my thoughts. What are yours on that video and, the state of affairs right now?
I'd like to compliment something you said that was just such a beautiful. You drew a litmus between kind of the more utilitarian defense for libertarianism and I don't know, maybe I would call it axiomatic, or I don't need to say natural rights. That's a little bit of a loaded term to some people, but there's a different kind of school of libertarianism that says, no, your rights are your own and that's it. And no matter how good the idea is, and no matter how much I can prove the idea is a great idea, it doesn't allow me to then step into your life and make that decision for you. And that's, I just want to so commend you for drawing that litmus in what you were saying. That I just needs recognition.
Well, I mean, that's the foundational principle for everything we talk about here on this channel and in my life and everything we do, right? You have ownership and final say-so and control over your body. And so all this other stuff that we talk about is either just going to be, what we personally subjectively think might be smart behavior on your part and my part. But, that's still just sort of subjective personal preference. And, look, if I don't want to be around people not wearing masks, I need to, have a house where I can make rules that keep those people away from me.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
It's just like 101 stuff, man, to me anyway. But yeah, you're right. People need to say this stuff more, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. On the airplane in that video, the first time I saw it, I thought, that's a wonderful child. And the dad was speaking Slovak to her. The mom, the child knows at least 2 languages. This is a doubly brilliant situation the parents are raising her in. There might be 3 languages for all we know that the child's learning. So this is like this brilliant child. The child knew better than to have this mask on her face, and she just wanted to do what is comfortable to her. And there was one thing. There's 2 things. I wish that those parents would have just read a little bit of my writing before getting on that plane. I think it could have prevented the situation. And a second thing I saw that this is something I'd like to encourage in your viewers. It's not a medical thing. It's just more taking a stand just a little bit further than might be comfortable is a good thing. And you gotta make a decision if that's something you're willing to do with a 2-year-old with you or not. But and I know that's a much harder thing. You don't want a scene in front of a child. You don't know how it's going to harm the child, or if the child's go. You don't want the child upset, right? Especially from some scene that you stood up against. That can be hard. But in the I wish that wonderful dad would have said to the flight attendant, I understand your position. May I please see the policy you are citing in writing? And he should not have left the seat without seeing that policy. I see that with a lot of face mask compliance situations, a lot of face mask compliance checkpoints, if you can simply if you can simply ask for a written version of what's being presented to you, and it's not just with face masks, this is whenever you're being pushed around in all kinds of situations, if you can just take that step and say, okay, what you're saying sounds pretty valid. Can I see that in writing? If you can do that, if you can have the wherewithal for a moment to do that, maybe half the situations just kind of disappear. And that's a good kind of first step.
Okay, maybe we can get into some role play then, because this might be a good way to sort of illustrate for people the techniques that your book goes into depth about. And again, like when I first looked at the book, I'm like, okay, this is probably like a 60-page read, that gives me a couple quick trips. Because like what I do, and I don't know if it's extra frustrating for me, but it is extra. It's extra. Like I feel that it's extra useless. This is my personal subjective opinion. Again. This mask wearing stuff, because I know, and I have been living for years, the real situations in which you really should be wearing masks. And so when I walk into the tire store to get a flat fixed and some little kid behind the counter barks at me to wear a mask, there's 2 things that I've been doing that both really work. Like I have yet to not have one of these 2 things work. One is I just say no thanks and I walk by. No thanks is a powerful pair of words. It is a no, which asserts your self-ownership and tells people what you will not be doing. To say your capacity to say no in the world is your ability to exist. It asserts your existence. No is a wonderful word, but it's also harsh, right? And so if you follow it up with thanks, then it like inverts it. It's like, I exist and I appreciate you, and you walk on by. Like, no thanks, and you walk on by. That works really often. Not Not all the time, not depending on where you live. Like, I'm in Texas. I think it's a little bit more chill here than a lot of places. The other thing I do when I'm, I guess, feeling particularly ornery, as my mother would say, is say, oh, I have a medical condition that exempts me from being able to wear a mask. Now, in my head, I'm thinking, yeah, I have this weird genetic brain deformity that makes me sort of resist controlling authority. And so, you know, that's my medical, you know, that's my medical condition. But anyway, those two have tended to work for me. But like, let's maybe go into a scenario and you can kind of tell us what your techniques would be. Or what do you think of mine first? What do you think of those two first?
Oh, those are great techniques. No thanks. Just said with the right. I bet you have a dominating tonality when you do it.
I'm 6'6", you know, 340. So when I say no thanks, it probably carries a different weight.
And I use a little bit different verbiage, but I think that's perfect. That someone, if someone wants to point to an exemption to say I'm unable to wear a face mask safely, and medical condition, it really, that term really can be very effective. I like, yeah, the approaches are effective approaches.
Okay. So I guess let's go back to the airplane situation. You have a guy coming up to you and saying, "Hey, you got to put a mask on your kid." What would you suggest they have said? Can you give us that again? You were asking to see the policy in writing. And
here is the something we need to keep in mind. Memory is the essence of civilization. This has been said repeatedly in the past, and it's not, civilization is not whatever Governor Newsom feels like today. It's not an executive order. It's not what the person at the compliance checkpoint feels like at a moment. If these aren't the most beautiful orders, these face mask protocols that have been released, it's not, I don't think it's the most beautiful thing to say, okay, let's look at the face mask protocol that you are abiding under and trying to enforce, because you are kind of giving credence to whatever backroom bureaucrat passed this order that is so important in our lives right now. So like, these things are not, it's not perfect. This is really a flawed approach in a lot of ways, but if I can use some backroom bureaucrats' face mask order as a lifeline back to sanity in our civilization, then this is great. I think laws can be used for good or for ill. Orders can be used for good or for ill. And I think a lot of people can use these as tools. So Patrick, you asked, you know, what would I do in that situation? You ready for the role play?
Yeah, let's do it. I guess I'll be the asshole flight attendant. Excuse me, sir. We have a policy on this airline where you have to, you know, everybody has to be wearing a mask. Can you please put a mask on your child? God, I feel dirty. I hate this. Go ahead.
She's been wearing a mask. She's been wearing a mask. Is there a problem here?
Oh, I'm sorry. We've seen her not wearing a mask so far. So I know she seems unhappy, but you know, it is our policy. We have to make sure that you do it.
We're doing the best that we can. What types of exemptions are there in the situation we're in? What type of exemptions are there for someone her age, would you say, on the airlines? What other alternates can we try? What can you help me work with here to accomplish what we need?
I'm not aware of that there are any exemptions. You might have to, you know, maybe call customer support at a later time to get that information. But now is not the time, sir.
I did speak to customer support. I spoke to Francine Tuesday afternoon, and I spoke to Thomas Wednesday afternoon to confirm that what Francine said was accurate. And if you'd like me to figure out their employee ID number, I have those as well. But they assured me that given the history with our daughter and her unwillingness to wear a face mask, and her age, that this would be totally fine on United. We were assured twice, in fact, by customer service. So if this does present a problem at this late stage, this would be very inconvenient to us. But what they did say to us was we could just easily speak to anyone who works for United, and they would know the policy very well and be very rational and reasonable about figuring out an accommodation for our daughter.
An accommodation, that's a good word. Well, I'm sorry, sir. I'm under direct orders from my boss. I can't. You guys have to wear a mask, or I'll have to, report it, and you might be escorted off the plane, and there might even be a fine.
Escorted off the plane? That's very serious. My goodness.
I know. I'm very sorry for the inconvenience, but it is just what we have to ask you to do.
Okay, that's fair. Could I trouble you to put me in touch with your boss? I would like to get your boss's wisdom on this topic.
I have no idea how flight attendants escalate. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
While you're at it as well, while you're getting your boss for me, would you please also find me a written copy of the policy you're enforcing? Because Francine and Thomas said that this was not the policy. If you could find a written copy, I think that would be helpful in having us sort this out a little bit.
I love this. I have no idea how the flight attendants would escalate something like this. My feeling is they would be like, we don't have time to get you in touch with our management right now. The plane needs to take off. It's not fair for you to delay all these other people. This is something that you should have, had resolved before. Just like I have a feeling that this isn't going to fly. Does this work? Does this work for you?
The pilot would get brought into it most likely.
Really?
If the pilot feels like having a conversation on the topic. If the pilot doesn't want to have a conversation, the pilot can really just make whatever decision he wants, regardless of any policy. The issue, what shouldn't happen for airplanes, you should just go on Delta. I don't know that I'll be able to say that 2 days from now, but at this moment, you just got to fly Delta. And it might be more expensive. Delta has lots of layovers. They do a lot of puddle jumpers and not direct flights. So it might take more time. But if you really don't want to wear a face mask, you cannot wear a face mask. Delta is the way to go. And what happens is you walk up to the ticket.
What's different about Delta? Sorry, go ahead.
They have a clear policy. Some of the airlines they have a clear exemption, I should say. Some of the airlines have been very clear to say there will be no exemptions at all. And there are very few. In face masks in one lesson, I say the word mandatory doesn't mean mandatory when it comes to face masks. And I go in depth about that and how you should have zero respect for the term mandatory, no matter where it's written, no matter who says it. With face masks, there's an exemption. Some exemptions are a mile wide. But so with Delta, they have the airlines are all trying to they'd love for there to be White House approval so that the airlines can say, we didn't do this. They would love for there to be White House approval for there to be mandated face masks on board all airplanes. And anyone who is not able to wear a face mask just can't fly anymore. The airlines are gunning for that. Delta has taken a little bit of a different stance, and United's a little softer as well. But Delta, you go up to the gate. I've got an exemption. The gate agents, the ticket counter. The ticket agent's already freaking out because you're not wearing a mask. Her colleague is trying to, with grubby hands, are trying to hand you a non-sterile face mask, totally in violation of World Health Organization protocol. I'm not putting that mask on. I got an exemption. What? We don't have exemptions. Masks are mandatory on our airlines. Really? Person number 2, masks are mandatory. We can't help you. You need to put on a mask. Person number 3, same thing. 4, maybe by person number 5, someone's going to say, I'll help them. I'll help them. Then they call a doctor. They have a special hotline, Delta does. They put you on the phone with the doctor. The doctor's job, he's to abuse the power of his white coat a little bit to get you to comply with the face mask policy, is what he's supposed to do. So he's not representing you, and he's going to ask you questions. He's going to talk about your age and your weight, and he's going to ask about conditions you may have and what you've used to treat them and what prescriptions you're on, and do you have a doctor's note? And you can answer as much as you want or as little as you want, and I go into that a little bit more in depth, and there's some Lou Rockwell articles on the same topic from me. If people don't want to spend $20 on a book, You can search me there to find some of this stuff. Not all of it, but the book it's a good place to find it all in one place, an index, blah, blah, blah. So you and the Delta doctor have a negotiation basically where the doctor may finally say it could be panic attacks, it could be lung conditions, it could be heart conditions, it could be migraines. There could be a wide array of issues. And, perhaps for a panic attack, you've had no reason to seek treatment from a doctor for 20 years that you've had them. Why would you have a doctor's note? You've never had this problem before. Every business you deal with has kindly accommodated you and said, yes, you can go grocery shopping without a face mask. We won't give you a hard time. Now Delta is here saying, we're going to give you a hard time. Where's your doctor's note? So the Delta doctor will work with you a little and can say, okay, I need you to promise you're going to only take off your face mask 5 minutes out of 20. And there will be some negotiation like that. Cool. That'll get you to where you need to go with very little harassment, likely. And then there's a good backup option that I've seen people do, and that I think is a smart way. There's the drinking and eating aspect that lets you take off a mask. When you're sitting in the plane, if you can't sip water for 3 hours, it's just ridiculous. Everyone will know, whatever. It's a little fake. What you can do is chewing gum with a bag of beef jerky open on your lap. That will last 3 hours, no problem. You don't even have to touch the beef jerky. Just, I'm chewing, and let it be at that. Those two techniques together at the present time will get you through on Delta. There's some other ways too.
Interesting. Okay, I think we probably started with like the worst case scenario. I think it's probably harder to fly right now without a mask than to do just about anything else. Let me know if I'm wrong, but maybe
down on airplanes, it's going to be no fun. But
yeah,
whatever.
So how about some more normal stuff? Like, let's go to the grocery store. What works at the grocery store?
Easy. Let's hear it. You're gonna bring at the grocery store. The first thing is you don't want to. Lots of people have written me saying, I walked in the door of the grocery store and I was yelling how I'm not going to wear a mask, and I didn't get in. I didn't get to get the food I wanted to get. Everyone went hungry tonight for dinner, right? I have gotten repeated stories like this. So you can do this like amped up. I am the alpha here, and I am a sovereign, and you are not going to get me masked. And this person at the compliance checkpoint has been doing this for 8 months or whatever, and they know how to handle you. And if they feel like moving out of your way, they will. And if they don't, they won't. And you have a hard time figuring out who's going to move out of your way and who won't. And there's places that it works, and it's a little risky. There's a lot of times it doesn't work. I think being 100% open and saying this face mask is stupid, it doesn't work. I read Face Masks in One Lesson, and there's a fantastic study from a CDC journal that says the face masks don't work. I want nothing to do with your foolish face mask. We're in hard economic times. If you don't want me to spend my money here, I won't. I'll go down the street. It's up to you. I'd love that conversation to be happening all the time. Some people, they need some kind of law to grasp onto. They want that lifeline. They need this piece of paper. And that's who the book's really for, the people who maybe need a little bit more of a lifeline, a little bit more of an incentive. And they know already they don't want to wear the face mask. So how do they do it? At the compliance checkpoint, you don't want to be having this conversation. You've walked up with no mask. You're freaking people out already. They haven't seen an unmasked face in 3 months. And the first one, and right, they'll say that. Probably they see a few unmasked faces every day, but they'll say that, and it's shocking, and everyone else follows the rules. What's wrong with you? There was an old woman here with an oxygen tank. She wore a mask. What's your problem? Well, it's none of your business what my problem is. I can't wear a face mask safely. But at the compliance checkpoint,
I think you just said something very important. The words in that order probably work.
It's none of your business what my problem is. I can't wear a face mask safely.
I can't wear a face mask safely, I bet would work. Interesting. Okay. So yeah, I think the convenience stores, the grocery stores, those are
in there in the grocery store.
Go ahead. Well, I was just about to role play real quick. So I was just going to say, You know,
Yeah, let's bring it.
the interactions are less professional because the people, you know, are not held to higher standards. So it's usually something along the lines of, "Hey, sir, can I get you a mask?" That's usually like the most polite way that they'll do it. What would you say?
You have grubby hands. Get away from me. No. I'm sorry. I'm not able to wear a face mask safely.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. It's store policy. You can't come in unless you have one.
I know the store policy very well. In fact, it's there's plenty of medical exemptions, and I know the county orders very well as well. And I have a medical exemption from the county, and I'm not able to wear one safely. Would you be able to count following the law?
Do you have a card or something for your exemption that I can see?
I have a doctor's note.
Oh, is that? Can you show me?
Well, it lists my medical condition on it, so I'd really prefer not to show you. And I understand your store policy is very specific about your need to protect customer privacy. So I could show you my doctor's note, but I'd just like you to follow your store policy and, you know, let a medically exempt person through the door.
Okay, I like it. Guys, in the audience, if you're watching, if you have challenges, if you have scenarios, pitch it to us in the comments. Lead your comment with question in all capitals so I make sure and see it. Open your eyes is saying it straight out doesn't work in many cities. Give us examples. Let's get challenges from the audience, you guys watching.
I like the challenge idea. May we go elsewhere in the grocery store?
Do it. Let's do it.
Even better? Okay. This is what I strongly recommend. Not to do that conversation we just did, but I'm asking you to spend 3 minutes doing something, and I'm not telling you some lie that spending your Christmas in a fetid French trench is going to protect your freedom. I'm not telling you that. And I'm not telling you got to storm Omaha Beach to protect your freedom. I'm not telling you that. Something that will have concrete impact on your freedom is to spend 3 minutes on the phone before you go into a grocery store, before you go anywhere, and have a conversation with a manager. And it can just be a reasonable conversation between two people, the way Americans have done for a long, long time, without there having to be any politics because you guys, one of you can't wear a mask and the other's got to deal with it. Nothing like that. These conversations, 19 out of 20 times, 95% of the time, these conversations are smooth. The other 5% of the time is like a big thing for the book with all kinds of different stipulations you can take, whatever. All you got to do, hey, can I speak to a manager? Yeah, hold on. What do you need? Oh, question about a face mask. Oh, I can help you with that. Okay. I notice you guys have a face mask policy. I'm unable to wear a face mask safely. Can you help me? What can I do? I'd like to come shopping. I was thinking this afternoon maybe. And sometimes I do this standing outside the store. Oh, we've handled this before. Yeah, you can just come through. Then you got to be sure you do this next thing. You got to say, okay, well, I can be there in about 5 minutes. Would that work with you? You just got to confirm. Oh, yeah. That's fine. 5 minutes. What do I do when I get there? You just got to you can't stop. When you get a yes, you just can't stop there. You got to keep going a little and make sure you get lots of consent and confirmation and you're just having this person on the same page with you. So what do I do? What do I do when I get there? You can ask. Some cities have very long lines, 2-hour lines still for groceries. I've never had a manager say, go stand in line. They say, okay, go right, because they don't want you freaking out other customers. Go right to the front of the line. I'll let the security guard know you're coming. And we'll just let the other store employees know you're coming so that they don't give you a hard time. Oh, that's awesome. What was your name again? And you might, to help get the name out of them, if they're a little timid sounding, you might say, my name's Allan. What was your name again? And you need to have the manager's name. This is like, keep the manager's name for the stores you go to in the same place you keep all your most important keys that open all the most important doors in your life. Because once you know the manager's name, the guy who doesn't want to get fired over your sovereignty beliefs, over your medical condition, of whatever the situation is. He doesn't want to put his neck on the line for some stranger. It's ridiculous. Why should he? He should be one of the other 1/3 unemployed people in our country for helping you, some guy he doesn't know. It's preposterous. But if you can say, well, Trevor sent me. Okay, now you're part of the crew. You know Trevor? You know Trevor too? Trevor's an okay guy. A little bit of a jerk sometimes as a boss, but he's an okay guy. Right? This is already going through the person's mind. He just said Trevor's name. Well, if he knows Trevor, this must be okay. Easy. You need... Those are a few steps I would take in that situation. And if you can just make that 3-minute phone call, it makes life so much easier.
Wow, that sounds like very effectual advice. Like efficacious is the word I'm looking for. That sounds like it would actually work. We do have a couple questions so far, and you guys are welcome to continue submitting questions. We will have him with us for a short time longer. So I want to save the ethical discussion for last, sort of the moral discussion for last, if you're interested in having that sort of from a libertarian private property perspective. Let's save that for last. I think that'll be the juicy one. Humpty Dumpty 762 says, somehow I think telling them it may be all part of a mass satanic initiation ritual might not be a good idea. Driving While Black has a question. At the bookstore I go to, the manager came up to me and said that one of his employees was worried because she has an at-risk family member. What would you do in this situation? That's an excellent question.
Employees are in such a rough situation right now. So many can't imagine what it's like to stand up for themselves. And this is so important. This question is so important, not just for Driving While Black 201 or whatever his name was. It's important for every employee to be able to really say. Someone wrote me a few weeks ago and said, oh no, he put something in a comment section. He didn't write to me directly. He said, there's a lot of people who are being cowardly. And I wish I could see a few more people standing up right now. And he said, when my boss said that it was time to get masked and the other 100 people at work were comfortable putting their masks on, I just went to my boss later that day. Tuesday, the masks were going to start. I went to my boss and said, hey, I understand if you're going to have to get rid of me. I just won't be able to wear a mask at work. The boss said, well, let's talk about that more. And the man, if he's telling the truth, and I have no reason to question him, and I have no reason to question why this wouldn't work between two rational people, the boss let him be there, and some of the people at work stopped wearing their mask. And I'm probably manipulating some of what he said to fit my memory, but that's more or less the story there. For the viewer that you write here, I would take as compassionate of a view as possible. Oh man, she's got someone ill at home. You've got to keep her 6 feet away from all customers because these masks. Listen, I've got a medical condition. These masks do nothing. It's horrible. I can't believe that we're pretending they're protecting our precious workers. This is nonsense. You've got to, whatever you can, if you can keep her in the back room, whatever it is, you must not let customers get too close to her. This is bad. I don't even know if she should be working for you. This is, Is she eating right? Does she have any comorbidities? This is very dangerous. This might not be the right place for her to work. Thank you for telling me that. But for her to rely on a mask, that's very misinformed. You as her boss should really be watching out for her better. What are you doing for her right now? I might go somewhere like there. But I'm not. Someone's lying to you. Someone's lying to you if they're saying, oh, this mask is going to protect my worker who's halfway across the store from you and her mother who's got some type of comorbidity. That person's, no, I'm sorry. That doesn't work. That's not how it works. I wish it did. I probably don't wish it did, but if it worked, I would be in that direction. that's the way I would go with that, and I wouldn't put up with anyone telling me lies.
Well, sir, we think it works, and, Granny over there on oxygen has the right to come buy food, or should have the ability to come buy food if she wants to, and be safe doing it.
You're absolutely right. We need Granny to be able to be in here safely. And how does that affect me, sir?
Well, we need to make sure that you are wearing your mask, so in case you're infected, she has a lower chance of getting it from you.
But I'm not going to go by Granny. Well, regardless, I think you're right. It's good you're protecting Granny. I'm not going to go by Granny, though. And your store policy is quite clear that you have exemptions for people who cannot safely wear face masks. And also the county policy on which your store policy is based has the same exemption. I've read them both. You may as well. You may have as well. What kind of accommodation can you make for me in this situation? I wouldn't say that last sentence. What kind of accommodation can you make for me in that sentence? This situation, I would have just said what I said and not offered some similar question for some similar accommodation. I would have just said what I said and shut up and listened. It's really helpful to listen as much as you can in these situations.
Yeah, listening it disarms them. It reduces the stress level of the conversation. Brent Erskine, I'm probably butchering your name, I apologize. Brent from Canada, we have exemptions within the law here, e.g. health, religious, physical, but some stores will not serve once we say this. What to say to this?
In the U.S., I know of 2 stores only that are, if it's a mom and pop, that's one thing. Like, the mom and pop stores haven't hired a lawyer they're going through so much right now. They haven't hired a lawyer to try to figure out what's going on. And that's a different story. And that's got to be just kind of played by ear and worked with. And if you go out for beers with the owner, they're probably going to be cooler with you having no face mask. And if you've been going there for 20 years, they're probably going to be cool and not want to lose your business and cool with this conversation. Who knows? Who knows what the story is? But mom and pop's a different story. In terms of national chains, I only know of 2 national chains that one's a regional, one's a national. Menards is a lumber store, hardware store. And what's the name? Sprouts. Sprouts is a kind of a West Coast natural food store. Those 2, as far as I can tell, even though I've been in with no mask, those 2, as far as I can tell, have national policies that say there really are no exemptions. I may be wrong about that, but that's the best I can tell, that those are their policies. So what I recommend in every situation is to get a hold of that local order, get a hold of that store's policy, and just like the couple on the plane could have done, may I see that in writing, please? In almost all situations, no one has read that policy. The person you're speaking to has not read that policy. They don't know that paragraph 8 has an exemption. They don't know that 9, 10, and 11 also have exemptions in them. They've been hearing Fox News and the New York Times and similar publications fill them with ideas that there are no mandates, there are no exemptions, everything's mandatory, this is mandatory, when those words aren't true. So I would ask for the policy, and I'd try to have a calm conversation with the manager beforehand. In many, many situations, that gets the job done.
And so I think, okay, so we're closed for questions now. Let me turn off that notification. Well, I want to respect your time. Unless if you have time, we'll keep going for sure, because I think people are going to keep coming up with stuff. So I don't want to hold you here against your consent.
Do you want me? I did not schedule anything on the back end so that I could have a little bit of time for you and your listeners. So it's up to you, Patrick, how long you want to go. I leave it in your hand.
Then do me the respect of telling me when you're getting about done, and I will wrap it up. Okay? So I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I think we're having a good time here, and we're getting some good questions.
I gave a 5-hour speech one time, Patrick.
Woo! Okay. Froggy needs no master. Question: how to handle managers that call the cops? Happened to me at a clinic. Get out! I don't know. What do you have to say?
Yeah. I I recommend against any unnecessary interactions with the police. Just because you don't know what's going to happen, right? I don't have to tell your audience, who knows what the heck's going to happen. In that situation, I might be comfortable to say a few words with the police as well, depending on the situation. If you can have a conversation with a manager before you show up at a hospital, it can be kind of hard, or a clinic. Froggy said he was at a clinic, I think. It can be kind of hard in some settings to figure out who a manager is and who to talk to. But if you can do that beforehand, it makes it less likely someone's going to want to call the police on you, because you can say, oh, I spoke to Melissa. Melissa in Dr. Chang's office said that, yeah, they know I'm okay. If that's something you can say instead of the 73-year-old candy striper getting after you because her boss got after her about it, if you can avoid that kind of conflict, you're doing a little better for yourself, I think. If the police come, I'm going to be as respectful as possible. I'm going to say, hey, I thought I was going to be okay here. These mask mandates have these medical exemptions. I've got a medical exemption, and I don't know what's going on. I don't know why this person's getting so worked up. I've been calm the whole time. I strongly recommend against any behavior that could end up on Twitter. I think if you're doing that, you're doing it wrong. It adds, a lot of people are hurting right now, and there's a lot of tension, and they're scared, and you can expect them being scared with $1 trillion media machine. When I go to the corner store and the TV's on, they have the news on, and I just hear fear in a way I've never heard it on TV before like this. And it's always been there, but never like this. There's almost no story anymore where there isn't fear just injected into everything about COVID. It's scary. I get it. So you got to have some, even though you feel like yelling sometimes, you just got to have some empathy for the other person who's really struggling through life the way a lot of us are during this horrific corona communism.
Corona communism. That was well said. Let's see. Groove Monkey asks, do we intend to increase the number of maskless people to reach a tipping point? I don't think we're trying to put forward like an agenda for a we here. I think we're giving people maybe tools for their toolbox if they have made a decision for themselves as to what they will or will not do independently of any we. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That sounds so spot on, Patrick. And you may have even come across this essay from the 1940s, Isaiah's Job by Knock. Isaiah's Job is just this fantastic description of someone's talking to him about, it takes 20 minutes to read this thing. I so strongly recommend it. Your listener there was saying the tipping point. And I think reading Isaiah's Job, Knock might say, we're not going for a tipping point. We're not going for a mass movement. Those can happen sometimes, but that should never be the goal. The goal should kind of be speaking to the remnant. And they talk, Knox says, if you go look at the Old Testament, the prophets of old, they were told they knew they could never expect riches. They knew they could never expect popularity. They knew they could never have the general public saying, wow, what a great idea Isaiah just had there about how to live life. No, none of that was going to happen. They were not promised any of that. Could happen, who knows? But they were definitely not promised any of that. What they were promised was that there was someone listening. Someone was always listening to what the prophet was saying, and the prophet's job was to be out there speaking to the remnant, speaking to the true believer, and bucking that person up a little. Letting that person know there was someone out there who agreed with them. And that person may never even come up to the prophet. The prophet, his entire life, his entire career might not know that person even exists. Those people exist, but it was promised that they are out there. So the listener who asked this question, I think, may see this already. Tipping point is this thing external from us. If we can just kind of focus on ourselves, and I mean as individuals, I don't even mean you and the friends around you, though your friends may change behavior as you model good behavior. As you model courage, they might as well. This is entirely possible. But this shouldn't even be the goal. At least in my life, it's not the goal. The goal for me is to live my life the best I can, to live my life as free as I can. And what I see always, no question, is that it ripples out. And when I can do things that may seem small to some people, like never wearing a mask again, if I can do that, I know I'm building muscles. And what I worry is if you wear the face mask, you'll take the vaccine. And if you know how to have these conversations that Patrick's described, Patrick knows how to say, no, thank you. And it's not just because Patrick's 6'6". That's not it. Because there's scared 6'6" people too who can't say that. Patrick knows how to say no, thank you. Because he can say that to the face mask, Patrick's will be able to say that to the vaccine if someone tries to give him the jab. He can say it if someone tries to give his daughter the jab. He knows how to protect people right now a little bit because Patrick's been exercising that muscle. And this is a great opportunity for that. I don't think a tipping point is necessarily valuable. Even people say, when will these lockdowns end? The lockdown ends person by person. It doesn't end because some 38-member blue ribbon panel said, okay, we've reached step 7B43, and now everyone's allowed to go to the barber again. No. When you decide to live as free of a life as possible, that lockdown's going to end for you as much as possible. And one person at a time that happens, tipping point or not.
I want to highlight something that you said that struck me. One of the things I do in my everyday life is I open carry my pistol.
Wonderful.
And I don't do this for tactical reasons. I think it's tactically a poor choice. And in fact, when I'm in areas in which I feel unsafe, I conceal carry. I open carry because it's a point of activism. It's a method of activism. It's a method of modifying the culture around me, because when I'm out with my wife and my 2 little kids and we're playing and loving each other and hugging and having a great time, and people also see me with a pistol on my hip, that modifies thoughts. That modifies algorithms in the brains around me just a little bit. And certainly I get bad reactions and certainly I get good reactions, but it has an effect, a ripple effect on the world around me. A tiny one, granted, but that's really all we can do as an individual, is have a tiny ripple effect on our local area for the most part. I think that is, in a way, what a lot of people should just aspire to. Don't try and fracture the world with your ideas. Just make little ripples constantly every day of your life as you go through life, and that will sort of amplify over the course of your lifespan. And I see this mask thing personally, again subjectively, as another one of those ripples that I send out when people around me see a guy walk in and just say no thanks and then proceed to have a normal shopping experience. That's a ripple. I remember one time me and a friend were in an elevator in a hotel. We were traveling. And we walk into the elevator, and at the same time, somebody walks in the elevator behind us wearing a mask, and we just continue normal conversation, and we even interact with her a little bit, and halfway through the elevator, she just takes her mask off because she felt out of place. And I looked, and I don't think anybody really noticed what happened in that moment, but in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, the ripple just worked. The ripple has materialized in front of me. Like, that is what I'm talking about. Little things, little tiny things have an effect over time in little ways, but they add up. So that's.
Before you could get me to say things like, why shouldn't any citizen who wants one be able to own a tank? Before that was like where I stood on ownership of firearms. There was a time where I was scared of guns and they didn't make sense to me. And I know the name of the person. I won't say his person, the person's name. Some of your listeners have even heard this man's name. I was in a work setting, and I realized that he was open carrying a gun on his side. And that had such an impact on me. It shifted my schema. It didn't take me everywhere that I am today, but I just in my head, I was like, whoa, that guy's got a gun. What's that mean? But I'm not in danger right now. I don't feel in danger. I didn't feel danger a second ago. Is this man protecting me? What if something bad happened here? He seems so responsible. He seems so genuine. Maybe he's someone who's good right now with that gun, right? Patrick, I have no question you help people by open carrying that thing. No question. It's my life was changed by this person open carrying a gun. It seems like such a silly thing that there's no way that guy would even imagine he had that impact on me, but it had a very striking impact on me.
And I would love if people's takeaway from this, in addition to, considering purchasing your book to learn the techniques, but if they think of small ways to just make more ripples. And, you don't have to go around saying, hey, I'm an anarchist and, fuck the government and all cops are bastards. All you have to do is, like, maybe in casual conversation, somebody's, saying, oh man, we, that's a red flag. It always it's like a blaring red light in any conversation around me when somebody says, man, we really need to do X, Y, and Z politically. And maybe you just say, maybe you don't get all anarchist and get all up in their face and start having a political debate to try and, teach them anarchy in 5 minutes. But you just say something like, man, I would never do that to you. And maybe they respond with something like, what do you mean? I was like, well, I don't have the right to control you in that way. And just make that the last thing you say. Just a little ripple. Just little ripples. I think that's a good takeaway from this show. So now let's maybe conclude the show or bookend the show with talking about the morality, the libertarian ethics of what we're talking about doing here, because I think it's important. And I think I don't know, we might have a disagreement. So do not these property owners have the right to make rules that exclude you from the property if you don't hold one eye closed, wear a mask, wear a purple hat, stand on one leg, hop around, do whatever they want? It's their property. So, if you're talking about store policy and you're debating medical exemptions and all this stuff, I think that's one thing. But I think also maybe there is an argument against doing something that in any way is fraudulent. So saying you have a doctor's note without having a doctor's note, or, things like that. What are your thoughts on private property rights, the right of these stores and airlines to prevent you from coming on their property, no matter what the arbitrary reason is, mask or otherwise? And what are your thoughts on that?
Mm-hmm. There's the property rights are very important to me. The idea that someone is stepping off a street into a store without first asking permission, it's a little ludicrous right there in a retail setting to say, oh, it's a big violation of property rights to walk in the door without first asking permission to be in that door unmasked. That's too far, because it's just presumed that everyone can walk in that door in a retail setting. And it is presumed that humans do not wear masks. That's just nature for all time. And until this strange, very trend obsessed year came about, that was the norm. So this is one kind of thing, but more importantly for me, these ideas are built upon government fiat. There's no question about that. And the amount of fear of someone being penalized by a public health bureaucrat at the county level, someone that they've never had any reason to know about. There's 3,100 something counties in the US. They all have their own little public health bureaucrat, sometimes committees of them, that are coming up with these insane rules. So there's threats of fines, there's threats of closures, there's threats of seizures, seizures of property. So like, there's so much heavy-handed government enforcement at the local level happening around face masks. There's no way to call this a private property issue in that setting. That's a big deal for me here. I'm sorry, it's not private property. And the issue here, even if it is a private property issue, even if you said none of that was happening, it was just 100. There's a private commission somewhere run by Bill Gates and Dr. Fauci, and they got together and they said, all stores should do this. And all the stores in the world said, we're going to do it because we really believe what that private commission says, even if it were not governmental in any way. Even then, I might consider it my role in society to be a little bit of a gadfly, to be a little bit of an educator, to be one who says, well, haven't you thought about the people this hurts? Let's talk about this a little bit. Let's figure this out, because it does hurt people. There are millions of Americans who are exempt. And right now, there's this battle being waged that is quite the sinister battle. It's between the concept of medicine and the concept of public health. Medicine is imperfect in so many ways. There's been a cartelization of medicine that's made medicine all the more awful in the United States in so many ways. The concept of medicine, though, and what it's supposed to be about goes back at least 2,500 years, the Hippocratic Oath. And it says there's an individual patient and an individual doctor, and they're working together against the world. And this is really foundational to medicine, this individual concept. And then you have in the 1860s, 1870s, 1880s, this period where there was lots of interjection of really horrible ideas couched in moral goodness, just the really awful, such awful ideas. In the midst of those awful ideas arises this idea called public health. And who could hate public health? Why would you hate it? Well, you hate it because instead of saying it's an individual doctor and an individual patient, public health is saying, oh, we're going to have a plebiscite now to see if Patrick is going to have this medical treatment or that medical treatment. We're going to assign utils to grandma. If grandma is worth 1 util alive and 2 utils dead, then we know what happens to grandma, right? This is public health. This is at the root of public health, this type of thinking. And this is very dangerous. And we never had the worry to know who these 3,000 public health officials were controlling the county public health departments, because they barely mattered. Barely. They mattered to some industries in some ways, but really, come on. These people aren't very important. They're quite boring people, and they're not very philosophically enriched either. They're quite impoverished philosophically, which isn't hard to understand once you understand that public health is so Marxist in their political views and so rooted in the concept of kind of a Marxist interpretation of medicine. It is the 180 to medicine. So here, seeing that around the Ides of March 2020, we got a taste of what would happen if you put these technocrats, these public health officials in charge of a country. What would it look like 8 months, 9 months later? And we're living through that. We're living through those, I don't know, how long is the 2-week lockdown now? 273 days here, maybe? We're living through what happens, what kind of corona communism is imposed upon a society when you put those public health officials in charge and don't let them get questioned. And in the USSR, even though the government was publicly atheist, even though the state was officially atheist, they were never able to close down the churches. And I would never have imagined a year ago that there would be a reason good enough to be given for all churches to be closed down in the United States. And this happened in many states. And there's still, even in California, there's still this remnant of pastors. There's this 500 pastors that are alleged to have stayed open. There's growth in the people attending their services because they've been courageous. When all the other churches said, we're going to virtue signal as quickly as possible. We have such low self-esteem, such low faith in our ideas. We're going to show everyone how good we are. We're going to close the door. And I don't know how you could have grown those churches the way they're growing right now. My friends who are in the vaccine safety movement, they say, I don't know how we could have grown our movement the way we've grown it this year. Because for years, the only people who cared about vaccine safety were expecting parents. That's it. No one else cared. There's no reason to care, with a very small minority beyond that who would care. And my friends in the homeschooling movement, they say the same thing. We never could have imagined how this would have grown our movement. We could never have come up with a more ideal situation for growing the movement. 2020 has been a blessing in so many ways. And I think I think for people who dislike the intervention of the state in so many parts of our lives, this is such a moment to stand up and be courageous and to say no more, to have higher standards. And there's people who've been doing that since 9/11, saying no more, no more. You're not going to treat me this way. And they were ready for face masks. They've never done this I surrender pose at TSA. They figured out how to get around that immediately. There's loopholes for everything, just like with the face masks. You may have legitimate conditions, but face masks in one lesson is to kind of help you through that a little bit and to help stoke some of that courage, I hope.
There was so much good in everything you just said. I do want to quibble on the ethic thing.
Please.
I want to rewind. I want to rewind because I don't want to when I rewind. I don't want it to seem like I'm erasing anything you just said, because most of that was amazing. I'm only going to disagree with like a small slice. So, and it's the slice where you said that, you know, this is a public institution and these private owners shouldn't. These private owners that are under threat of government coercion, being shut down, business licenses removed, fines, jails, like we had with the barber. There's a lady that had a barber shop 30 minutes from my house. Everyone in the world has heard of this lady at one point because she refused to shut down when she was ordered to by the tyrannical judge in my county. And a lot of the local activists. We did an interview with one of the activists that showed up with guns to defend her that day on Anarchast. You can go and find that a while back. The quibble, the disagreement is that if I am under threat by some gang to institute rules for my property, and I choose a method of self-defense that equals instituting some or all of those rules to protect myself from the threat, then I don't think anybody else outside of that interaction has the right to sort of force a different kind of self-defense onto my property. So if I choose to defend myself from this massive gang by instituting this dumb rule, I don't think that somebody has the right to come along and say, well, I'm going to disregard your rules for your private property because those rules are forced on you. I don't think that anybody has the right to do that. It's my self-defense. I get to choose for my property how I'm going to defend myself or not. And I don't think somebody else has the right to revoke that. What are your thoughts?
Oh, I agree with you entirely. Let me ask a question. Since there are exemptions in the rules, do you, and the property owner is saying it's a different story. Sprouts, Menards, those people who say I am not allowing any exemptions at all. So a property that says there's exemptions in the rules. We list the exemptions on our website. You can see the policy on our website, and you are simply getting the manager to honor that policy. Do you believe in that situation, Patrick, that you have violated property rights?
No, I don't think that's a violation at all. And I think even if their rule is flat out no, we don't allow it, there's nothing wrong with trying. There's nothing wrong with going up and having that negotiation where you're like, hey, I've got some money, you've got some product, can we do business? No? Okay, walk away. I think the only thing I just wanted to clarify, because I think there's an ethical point there where people think that because the governments are under duress, that it's not really the property owner's right to control their property in that way. I've heard that way. I've had debates recently, yesterday, in fact, with people that take that position. So I thought it was worthy. I thought having you on, this was a perfect example, or you were the perfect person to have that talk with. So it sounds like we don't disagree.
I agree with you. And this situation here that you just described, we don't have. Some people will call this tyranny. It probably is. Not probably. It's tyranny to some extent, because it can be so much worse. These rules still leave room for humanity, for a human to go along and say the words they need to say, for the bureaucrat to hear them. There's still room to walk in the establishment with no mask. And I think it's very important to exercise this ability to do it right now. If there are policies put into place nationally that really do say there will be no exemptions, This is a very different time we live in than right now. And in a moment like this right now, it's especially worthy to be able to kind of point the mirror at yourself. I do this every day. If I'm unhappy about something, I try to figure out what the heck was my role in that, because in all likelihood, I could have changed that outcome entirely. When you can look at yourself like that, you have the ability to adjust a situation that's not working for you. And that applies to tyranny as well. Sometimes it's not your oppressor's fault that you are so oppressible. And this is a moment where one can really reach out and grab their freedoms if they'll just take it. If they'll just stand up and say, I'm going to have the courage to grab that freedom. And Mark Twain wrote in Huck Finn that one courageous man can shout down a lynch mob of 10,000, because that lynch mob gets their strength from their numbers, not from some courage within them. And this is really a moment where libertarians have been reading all the right stuff for so long. And at this moment, if some of us can't stand up and lead, then it's just mental masturbation, right? And this is, the world could really use us right now. I'm not saying the whole world needs a libertarian dictator. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to go for a mass movement. But in your own circle, you might have just been that guy who would once in a while make a comment. It might be time to kind of say, how can I step up as a model? How can I start to lead more in my community, in my family, and the people around me? I think now is just an amazing time for libertarian leaders to be there, to guide a scared world that hasn't been doing the amazing reading for the last 5, 10, 50 years, maybe. Who knows? I don't know how long or how old some of your listeners are. Now is such a wonderful time for libertarians to lead.
Yeah, send out those ripples. Be like a wave machine right now. Just, get some waves going. Don't be obnoxious. Be polite. Be composed. No, thank you. It embodies the power that I think people need to adopt. Okay, so, sir, I have very much enjoyed this conversation. I hope that we can find excuses to have more of these in the future. I think it would be good to end with you giving a plug for your book, telling people where they can buy it, your website, and anything else that you'd like to direct people to.
Fantastic. Patrick, thank you. Let's see. I have a copy down here. It's called, and behind me, Face Masks in One Lesson. And the book, it'll take you 15 minutes maybe to read the beginning. It gives you everything you need on how to never wear a face mask again right there at the beginning, and just kind of in broad strokes with some good techniques. And then it spends another 250 pages or so really kind of outlining at the grocery store, at work, at school, at the doctor. It talks about public transportation a little. It talks about all kinds of scenarios that readers have written me about, saying, how do I get past in this situation? What do I do in this situation? This is such a headache for me. And it just kind of goes through that with a tremendous amount of detail. And it can be, like I said earlier, for slow learners like me, that whole book is there. And for those who are ready to just kind of read quickly and to go out and live a more free life just immediately, the book's built for that as well. And it costs about $20. Amazon's where most people buy it, but you can get it on Barnes & Noble, and anywhere you buy books online, you can find it. Ebook, print format, whatever.
There's an Amazon affiliate link in the description if you want to help the channel out too. It'll take you right to his book.
Please use Patrick's Amazon affiliate link, because usually what that means is he'll make a few percent of your purchase for sending you to Amazon. And that, I don't know what kind of costs Patrick undergoes, but I'm sure that check that he gets each month is really a nice way to kind of subsidize his activity. And I bet the more Patrick can kind of focus on the show, the even better quality he's able to give the listeners when he's able to focus less on his daily needs for money, is my guess. So please use his affiliate link if you can.
Well, thank you, sir. This conversation has been amazing, guys. If you enjoyed it, please hit the thumbs and do the thing and the subscribe and all the normie stuff. leave a comment. Check out our website, disenthralled.me/platforms. You can also find our support options there. You can become a Patreon. We have a direct payment system, so you don't have to give Patreon part of your money. Also, for those, I want to reward people that stuck around to the end of the stream. The Anarchapulco tickets are about to go on sale, potentially tonight or tomorrow. And if you use the code Anarchast10, when those tickets come out, you will get 10% off already really cheap Anarchapulco tickets. So I wanted to put that out there. We'll probably do more shows and more content on that 10. Thanks, AnCap Gamer, for hanging out in chat and for putting the names of the books and stuff. Thank you guys for your questions. I enjoyed engaging with you today. And I especially appreciate the people that did so politely and respectfully. That was great and not standard for internet discourse. Guys, peace, love, and anarchy.